Imagine not being able to read the paper because your hands were shaking. Imagine not being able to read newsprint as your world faded to black. The National Federation of the Blind Newsline Indiana television show with your host, Lee Martin, and co-host Florence Myers.
We want to welcome you to the National Federation of the Blind Newsline Indiana show, and I'm your host, Lee Martin.
And I'm co-host Florence Myers.
And once again, we want to thank you for allowing us in your homes on this Sunday morning and the Sunday mornings that you have allowed us in. And we hope that you continue to join us for a lot of the information that we share, a lot of fantastic guests, and as we try our best to bring you information that you just don't get everywhere, as we strive hard to bridge gaps of visible differences, which is a quote from our former president with the National Federation of the Blind, Dr. Kenneth Jernigan. So Florence, we do work on building bridges, don't we?
Every day.
So I know we're gonna lay some bricks today, aren't we?
Absolutely.
So we have a very special guest with us today, and he's all the way from Washington, D.C. How are you doing today, Mr. Steve Lindsey?
I am wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing fine, and Florence is doing
Fantastic.
fantastic. So we're going to go ahead and get right on into your interview. So you've done so much, and we want you, just to open up and share. You have a quote, and I just want to make that quote while we're talking right now. And that quote simply is, if it's to be, it's up to me. And when you said that, it kind of caught my attention. And it's similar to a quote that Florence uses a lot. But if it's to be, it's up to me. What does that mean to you?
Well, it means that I think every individual controls their own destiny. And I don't like to wallow and complain or say what if. I just try to make it happen. So I understand that my future and my present is a result of what I decide. And that's what it means to me.
All right, all right. Now, as Lee mentioned, I like the quote. It's actually by Gandhi. As be the change that you want to see in the world. Because again,
I'm familiar with that. I mentioned that to Lee, and he said, "Oh, that's Florence's favorite quote."
yeah. But I like yours. I'm going to adopt yours as well, if you don't mind.
I'll give you a couple more before we're through.
Well, Steve,
Yes.
we'd like to know about you a little bit. Well, we'd like to know a lot about you, as a matter of fact. Tell us, how was your life before blindness, Steve?
Well, I kind of look at my life as being a book, and before blindness, I had a lot of pages behind me, and when I had loss of my eyesight, I made the determination that I was just going to close that chapter, the previous chapter, and start a new one and start turning the pages. So I think I had a pretty good quality of life. It was interesting. I think I crammed a lot of years into the 50 years I had before I lost my eyesight, and I'm pretty. Yeah, I think I had a pretty good quality of life. I had a wide range of experiences, and I traveled a lot, and I did a lot of things that I enjoyed. Some of them I wish I could still do, but I had a good quality, I think.
Now, you've gone to Howard University.
Yes, I'm a proud graduate of Howard University,
Okay.
the mecca of Black education in your nation's capital.
All right. Well, what did you study, Steve?
Well, actually, I studied zoology, and I had an emphasis on cell biology and microanatomy.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was a scientist, a research scientist for about 15 years, and I worked at the in the university settings. I worked in private industry. I worked in a hospital setting at one time, and I worked at the Howard University Medical School for a good number of years. When I got out of science, I was on faculty at research faculty at the University of Maryland in College Park.
Yeah, I tell you, going to Howard University, and it's just I'm just proud to hear that HBCU, with the Howard University, and congratulations on what you've done. So I just want to know, you had a turning point there in your life, so kind of explain to us what led to your blindness.
Well, the diagnosis I think is overall diagnosis initially was retinopathy, diabetic retinopathy. I've since kind of lost my diabetic label, but the retinopathy stood firm. I lost vision in one eye back in 2005, and I had a detached retina. I went in for reattachment surgery, and within 2 weeks after the initial surgery, I tripped over a parking stanchion in a parking lot. A friend of mine was taking me out to dinner, and I tripped over that, and it detached again. So I had two surgeries in the same eye within 2 weeks, and it kind of turned that eyesight to a diminished level. I have about maybe less than 10% remaining now in that eye. About 10 years later, I developed a macular hole in my remaining eye. Up until that time, I was functioning, with a monocular vision. I could drive, I could do pretty much everything. But I started losing my central vision due to that hole. And actually, I'm coming up on my 13th anniversary of vision loss later this month. And I went to a prominent ophthalmologist here in DC, and he told me that he had a 95% success rate fixing my problem. So I went and had the surgery, and I ended up in that five remaining percentage, and that began my blindness, more or less.
Okay, now Steve, now do you recall your first initial emotional response when you lost your sight?
Well, I'm kind of the antithesis of what most people go through. I didn't mourn, I didn't feel angry, I didn't feel any of that because I realized when I lost most of my vision in my left eye that there's a possibility that I might become blind eventually. So I kind of mentally had prepared for it. And I'm also one of those I grew up in a military family, so I came from that tough love environment. So I was like, okay, I just need to learn how to be the best blind person I can be. And that was my quest for the first couple of years or so.
Well, Steve, I know we're getting short on this segment, but I want to dive right into this question here, and I appreciate you wanted to share with us. You were married, and you lost your sight. You want to explain to our listening viewing audience, how did marriage or sight loss affect your marriage?
Well, I think it's pretty funny now in hindsight, but I was living in Savannah, Georgia. My wife and I had relocated down south from this area because we like warmer weather, and I love the beach. And Savannah, it's got some nice beaches. So after being down there for a little while, we had gone out on a monthly date and had gone to a seafood restaurant and left the restaurant at the beach and got in my car and I couldn't see anything. And my wife said, "You're joking, right?" And I said, "No, you're going to have to drive home. I can't see anything." And she was like, "Well, I didn't sign up for this." And my first response was, "Well, yes, you did. When I took you to Maui and we got married on the beach and you had a beautiful honeymoon and all that, it was death do us part, sickness and health, all that, you signed up for this." She said, "Well, I never wanted to have a husband that couldn't drive me around." I was like, okay. I thought to myself, I know how to finish this off. So as soon as I could, I got back to DC because I wanted to be someplace familiar that when I lost my sight totally, I'd be able to handle it and know what the layout was. And also, I all my siblings had passed on, so I had to get back to where I had friends and more or less some support. And I knew it was over for me and her, and that was that.
Wow. Well, Steve, what we're going to do, we're going to take us a short pause for the cause, and we're going to come back and we're going to talk some more about the life of Steve Lindsey. Stay tuned.
With my failing eyesight, I'm not able to read regular newspapers, and I'm not able to keep up with obituaries.
I've been a homemaker all of my life, but since my vision has failed, I wish I could read my favorite magazines.
Have you heard of the NFB Newsline?
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
Subscribe free to NFB Newsline today.
If you or someone you know is visually impaired or print challenged, the National Federation of the Blind has a resource you need.
I use NFB Newsline when reading Hammond Northwest Times.
Using NFB Newsline, I read the Christian Science magazine.
Dad, you read your Jerusalem Post too.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
Live the life you want. Read NFB Newsline.
It's free.
I just graduated college as a blind student. How can I independently find job listings?
Thanks to the National Federation of the Blind, visually impaired Hoosiers can hear newspapers, circulars, and magazines from across the globe.
It is a fantastic service.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
We are the nation's blind, and we read NFB Newsline.
If you or someone you know is visually impaired or print challenged, the National Federation of the Blind has a resource you need.
Wow, I scored a touchdown when I found sports on NFB Newsline.
I enjoy reading TV guide listings on NFB Newsline.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
We are the nation's blind. We read NFB Newsline.
It's free.
Welcome back to this segment of the National Federation of the Blind Newsline, Indiana. And Steve, when you said that about what your ex-wife had told you, my mouth dropped because that's the same thing my ex-husband told me. But the thing about it is we learn something from every single situation, including divorce. So let's jump into your divorce, and what did you learn about support and resilience with your divorce?
I've always been a resilient person and a person that had a bit of tenacity about me. And that was, not my first rodeo, as they say. I had been divorced previously, so I knew how the process was. And as B.B. King used to say, the thrill is gone. So, once that happened, the love left right away for me. I was like, okay, how do I end this as fast and as expedient as I could? And luckily, I was in a no-fault state. So, in Georgia, you can get divorced within about 3 months after you file the paperwork. But my problem with her is she didn't want to be married to me, but she didn't want to file the paperwork. So I was like, okay, this is really, another bone of contention. So it took about 3 years for me to finally get her to sign the paperwork and finish the process. And I think that was basically because I think she got involved with somebody else. So that probably was the reason.
Moving forward here, adapting to blindness, what was the hardest adjustment for you early on?
The hardest thing for me wasn't really about the blindness or using O&M and things like that. I picked up all that pretty quickly. My problem was having to pre-plan everything because I was a spontaneous person. I would jump in my car and go to the ocean just to watch the sunrise. I would do, spontaneous things. And when you can't drive and you can't, you have to map out everything you do, figuring out your transportation and logistics and everything. That was the most frustrating thing for me. Also, some of the activities I did before I lost my eyesight, I couldn't do any longer. I used to be an avid scuba diver. And, I travel and dive all over, the Caribbean and the US. And I couldn't do that anymore, so that changed things. And I was literally a beach bum when I was in Savannah because the beach was maybe 15, 20 minutes from my front doorstep. And I was so dark when I lived down there. People thought I was Cuban. They'd walk up to me and start speaking Spanish. And I'm like, no, 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 not me. No, no. But that was a lifestyle change. But I always loved DC. I was born and raised here, with a few exceptions of living overseas when my father was stationed in Germany. But I enjoy DC. No place like home.
No place like home. Okay, now let's talk about your journey with blindness and your acceptance of your white cane. Um, Tell me, what did your acceptance of the white cane? What did that mean to you?
Well, I embraced the white cane right away, simply because it was very practical. When I first lost my eyesight, until I got my first white cane, I had an ambulatory cane that I was trying to find my way with, and that didn't work too well. I was DC has these tree boxes all over town that are made out of wrought iron, and I kept falling into these tree boxes, and it just wasn't good. I was getting cuts and bruises and stuff like that, and I said, "Wow!" When I got the white cane, and especially when I discovered the rollerball tip, I could go all over town and it didn't bother me one bit. I was able to navigate and go through the snow and all four seasons of weather here in DC, and it didn't bother me at all. And I never could understand how people were, the vanity kept them from using the white cane. I said it's much better than falling on your face all the time and having people look at you like you're crazy. So I didn't have any issues with that.
Well, just for our listening and our viewing audience in particular, I do have a white cane here, just the one you was talking about too, and it's a collapsible cane, and it also has that rollerball tip you was talking about, and very useful tool, one of many, and you can just collapse it right on down as I'm doing now. And there are laws regarding these canes that people need to know more about when you see a white cane with a red tip, and it's an identifier as well. But I would recommend that you read through your driver's manual, and you'll run through the laws there, or just Google it up as they do nowadays. And you can find out what the rules and the laws are regarding the white cane and some of the penalties that goes along with, abuse of a person with a white cane.
Coincidentally, I don't live far from Gallaudet University, which is the National School for the Deaf here in DC. And there are also some deaf blind people. And if you see a deaf blind person, typically their white cane has a red candy stripe around the shaft. And that's to identify them as being both deaf and blind. And every once in a while, whenever I get in a cab in DC, I try to tell cab drivers about that. Most of them have never heard about that law or rule, but it's something to be concerned about, for your viewing audience. If they're out there driving and they see someone with a white cane that has a red stripe on it, that's the reason.
Now, Steve, now has blindness changed how people treat you? Have you noticed that at all?
To some degree, I don't get invited to cookouts and weddings anymore. I noticed that. I guess they figure I'm going to be too much of trouble or need help or whatever. And most of those people haven't seen me in action. I'm very independent and self-sufficient, so I don't think I'm a burden to anybody. But it separated your true friends from your acquaintances, and I've ironically, my best friend of over 50 years uh, didn't even phase him a bit. And then I forgot his mom had been a blind educator here in DC. So he was used to being around blind people and it didn't bother him one bit, But like I said, it kind of crimped down my social calendar somewhat, but they don't know what they're missing.
Well, with your growth perspective here, I just want to know what helped push you through your lowest moments, Steve?
My lowest moments and blindness?
In blindness and in your blindness journey.
I don't think I've had my lowest moment yet. I don't think I've really had anything I couldn't overcome. And I think that's what blind people do. We adapt and we overcome. So, I don't dwell on anything very long. And, if there's something that would cause, I never get depressed about stuff like that. Those are things I can't change. All I can do is be the best person I can be. And that's up to me.
It's up to you. Yes, sir. Now, I can tell that you were raised in a military family because I remember, you just said something that just struck home real loud, because I've always heard improvise, adapt, and overcome. What barriers have you faced, and basically, how have you overcome?
Barriers. Well, you have to be able to respond to things on the fly. Here in DC, it seems like they're always digging up sidewalks and streets and things. And, you can plan your routes, especially if I live on Capitol Hill now. But if I have to go downtown for some reason, I know where I'm going. I can navigate getting off the subway and go to where I need to go. But every once in a while, they'll be digging up the sidewalk or the street will be closed and I have to adapt on the spot. So, being able to navigate and know the layout of the city, that makes it a lot easier to deal with those changes. And you never know what you're going to come with at any time. So that's something, I've gotten better at. Initially, when I first lost my eyesight and I would go out with my white cane and locomote all over town, I would come home and I'd be exhausted, because it would, my mind was always working. I had to always be aware of things. My senses were firing in all cylinders. But now it's like second nature to me, so it doesn't stress me at all.
Wow, second nature. I tell you, this is a true reality right there, because we do adapt, and that second nature, that's a cool word to use right there. So we're going to take us a short pause, and we're going to come back, unfortunately, with the conclusion of our show with Mr. Steven Lindsey.
Thousands of Indiana residents feel isolated from the world due to vision problems. Thanks to the National Federation of the Blind, visually impaired Hoosiers can hear newspapers, circulars, and magazines from across the globe.
I'm a Vietnam veteran. I'm blind. I read Stars and Stripes on NFB Newsline.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
Subscribe free to NFB Newsline. You gonna count me down?
We have disabilities.
And we make you uncomfortable.
It's why you love to vote as prom king.
Do you remember us on Monday?
You are afraid to see us fail.
It's why you place us in jobs
with few challenges. We make you nervous.
So you do really silly things.
Like talking louder to someone who's blind.
Now, think about that.
And then take a deep breath.
Relax.
Relax.
Just be yourself.
Be you.
Just be cool.
Because most certainly,
I am.
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 This guy is.
We are.
If you or someone you know is visually impaired or print challenged, the National Federation of the Blind has a resource you need.
I am a CFP practitioner, and I happen to be blind. I rely on NFB Newsline to keep me current with Wall Street Journal and the Financial Times.
Hoosiers can hear Indiana magazines, circulars, national magazines, and information from across the globe. Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
Steve, it's been such a great time to have you on our show today, and I've really enjoyed our conversation. We'll have to have you come back and share some more with us, as we run a 24-minute show here. But my question to you is, what advice would you give to someone facing sudden life change?
Well, when I was in college, I developed a mantra that has become a lifelong philosophy for me. And that is that either you evolve or you become extinct. And I would tell people to get as much training or, I've had a few other challenges we can probably do another segment, but, you have to be able to deal with what comes. And sometimes you have to slip the punches and sometimes you have to block the punches. But, you just got to keep fighting.
Absolutely, absolutely. And with that being said, Steve, what legacy would you hope that your story leaves?
Well, I want to be a person that leaves an impact more than an impression, because an impression doesn't last very long, you know, it, and I want to have a legacy that says that I've made a difference in the planet while I was here, whether it's with my blind brothers and sisters or mentoring younger folks or being able to help in general. And my family always was kind of from a long line of community service, and that's what I want to be. I want to have had a legacy where people can say we miss him because of.
Wow. Well, I tell you what, Steve, I certainly appreciate all the inspiration that you shared and the knowledge that you shared with us and our listening and viewing audience. And just remember, if it's to be, it's up to me. So listening and viewing audience, it's up to you to make that change in our lives, in our communities' lives, because we all need one another. So until our next show, please take care of yourselves and God bless.
The National Federation of the Blind Newsline Indiana television show. For more information, go to nfb-in.org or call 855-963-6476. That's 855-963-6476.